Thank you, Judge Moore, for that kind introduction. And thank you for your years of leadership in county government and your service at KCO, and also at the national level as second vice president of the National Association of Counties. And I also want to commend you for working when you served as the co-chair of the National City-County Task Force on the Opioid Epidemic. You bring a solid Kentucky County judge's perspective to national issues, and you are always a valued voice. And Brian Roy, it is good to see you again, my friend. We have known each other for a long time. I still have to correct myself. I tend to call him Sheriff a lot, and I watch how I behave around him. But it is good to be here. And Elbert Bennett, congratulations to you in your new role as you become president of KCO. And Elbert, I don't know if you know this or not, but my early years were spent on a farm that lay partially in Caldwell County, down near the Black Hawk community. But thank you. It's good to be here back home in Kentucky, see so many good friends, familiar faces. I have had the pleasure of working with local officials, county officials for over 20 years, as has been said during my time with Senator McConnell's office and when I worked for Governor Fletcher. And I've always enjoyed working with county officials, as you have the greatest day-to-day impact on the lives of our citizens. I thought I would lead off a little bit talking about the Appalachian Regional Commission, but I want to do so in a way that is of interest to those of you not from the Appalachian part of the state, as I believe some of the themes I reference will be equally applicable to everyone here, regardless of where in the state you may be. For those of you not familiar with ARC, I'll explain who we are. We are truly a federal, state, local partnership. We are a commission that has 14 members. 13 of those members are the governors of the 13 states that touch upon Appalachia, plus one member, the 14th member, is a presidentially nominated Senate confirmed member. That is the slot that I'm currently fortunate enough to fill. The presidentially nominated member serves as the federal co-chair. The governors select one of their own each year to serve as the state's co-chair. This year's state's co-chair is Governor Phil Bryant of Mississippi. And I'm actually the second Kentuckian to serve as the ARC federal co-chair. The first was Al Smith, who you may recall from his long-running public affairs program on KET. Al was federal co-chair of ARC, nominated by President Carter. But ARC was established by act of Congress in 1965 as an economic development entity, charged with helping lift the Appalachian region into socio-economic parity with the rest of the country. And Congress appropriates funding each year for ARC's programmatic activities. Now, as you are likely aware, there are several parts of the country that have federal chartered entities created to address particular needs of their area. There's, of course, the Tennessee Valley Authority, which serves some but not all of Kentucky, and there are a couple of other regional economic development entities modeled upon ARC that Congress has created, including the Delta Regional Authority along the lower Mississippi River Delta, which covers a number of Kentucky counties in the west. These regional entities are based upon the idea that the country as a whole is stronger when each part of the country succeeds. We all do better when each one of us does better. ARC was devised as a grassroots, bottom-up economic development effort. And along those lines, I'll give you a bit of trivia in that the act that created ARC was the first time Congress described what it called local development districts as part of that federal, state, local partnership. That actually sparked the beginning of the area development districts in Kentucky in order that Eastern Kentucky could fully participate in the organizational structure of ARC. So when ARC celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2015, a couple of years later, you then saw a number of Eastern Kentucky area development districts also celebrate their 50th year. And of course, the idea was too good to just be limited to Eastern Kentucky, and area development districts soon followed in the rest of the state. And although ARC's footprint covers parts of 13 states, we think in counties. We describe our footprint as 420 counties, from northern Mississippi to southern New York. 54 of those counties are here in Kentucky. We know that, and this is particularly true for rural communities, we know that counties are the backbone of community strength and identity, economic development, and sustainable growth. And we also have found that if a problem exists in a community, the solution to that problem will be found in that same community. And ARC for 53 years has been built on the premise of local leadership, local ideas, and locality-based solutions to local challenges. That is the way we operate. And while we may provide financial resources and technical assistance, the vision, the ideas, and yes, the hard work of that grassroots effort, those are all led by local officials like you. Because of that, supporting local leadership efforts and helping develop local leadership capacity has long been an activity ARC has invested in. In fact, the National Association of Counties and ARC have had an effective and impactful partnership at the national level for decades. Together, we have taken on some of our community's most pressing challenges. For instance, as the region's coal economy changed, ARC and NACO worked together to provide additional technical assistance to a number of Appalachian coal communities, assistance in areas such as grant writing, feasibility studies, strategic plan development, or updates to strategic plans, and other capacity building efforts. This has helped our communities and our counties expand their capacity, leverage additional resources, and successfully prepare for a stronger economic future. But now it is time to apply this same cooperative strategy to address what has quickly emerged as one of the biggest threats and obstacles to our region's economic future. And I am talking about the region's current substance abuse crisis. Now, I saw where your program this year has included a number of speakers on the topic, which is appropriate, as this problem has become acute in the last several years and is taking a tragic toll in our communities and extracting a terrible price in lives, public expenditures, and lost opportunities. It is stymieing our potential growth and frankly threatens to undermine much of the investment and progress we have made to this point. Appalachians on the whole are 65% more likely to die from a drug overdose than anyone in the rest of the country. In some hot spots in the region, overdose fatalities are 2 or 3 or even 4 times the national average. And those areas hardest hit include parts of Kentucky and also West Virginia and Ohio. Indeed, this region that I have just described is where the opioid epidemic first became evident. Now, we are increasingly seeing that in addition to the toll in lives lost, substance abuse is increasingly becoming an economic and workforce issue, both in our region and across the nation. And that puts the problem squarely within ARC's congressional mandate of supporting economic development. I have found in my travels throughout the region that employers often cannot find workers to fill existing slots. A growing economy requires workers, and substance abuse has been cited as a significant factor, although certainly not the only factor, impacting the availability of workers. Speaking broadly, we need to build a strong infrastructure that produces a near-seamless pipeline of treatment and sustainable recovery, ending with employment. Gainful employment is critical. I have had experts from across the region say the same thing, that a job is an important component of, and in fact, the most commonly seen feature in successful recovery outcomes. A job provides self-confidence and self-esteem to the individual and provides a support network of daily positive influences. When Ronald Reagan said that the best social program ever devised was a job, He was right in so many ways. Now, additionally, supporting that recovery infrastructure requires our educational system to produce graduates with the necessary mental health and substance abuse qualifications, as those fields will see high demand for the foreseeable future. You see, we have two workforce issues right now. The workforce issue created by those not participating in our economy, and the separate workforce issue of having the trained workers that will support recovery efforts. In the region, we are finding that communities that are making the most progress in addressing substance abuse in their area are those that at the local level are working across community sectors, knocking down organizational silos and developing new and innovative partnerships that include local officials, health providers, educators, law enforcement, business and industry, nonprofits, the faith-based sector, and others pulling together in collaborative fashion. ARC would like to help your communities in those type of collaborative efforts. Now, President Trump and Congress recognize this multifaceted problem and the strain it is putting on our local communities. That is why they included additional guidance for ARC in recent legislation that has been signed into law. This recent legislation authorizes a new drug abuse mitigation initiative at ARC, covering 4 broad types of activities. To first, facilitate the sharing of best practices among states. Second, initiate or expand programs designed to eliminate or reduce the harm to the workforce and economic growth. Third, attract and retain relevant healthcare services, businesses, and workers. And fourth, develop relevant infrastructure, including broadband infrastructure that supports the use of telemedicine. Now, Kentucky is known for being ground zero for this particular epidemic, but what I have found most encouraging is that thanks to the work of local, state, and federal officials, the Commonwealth is becoming more known for innovative, evidence-based solutions to this challenge. But too many Kentuckians are still dying each year from overdoses. So we have more work to do both in Kentucky and across the nation. That's why I'm proud to announce a new partnership between NACO and ARC. The NACO-ARC Appalachian Substance Abuse Response Initiative is a cooperative effort between our two organizations to develop educational materials, provide informational resources, and build a toolkit for communities to effectively deploy to address the drug epidemic as it manifests locally in your communities. The Appalachian Substance Abuse Response Initiative will support county leaders like you as you work to educate your communities, prevent substance abuse disorder before it starts, strengthen access to treatment to help achieve long-term sobriety and get back to work, and mitigate the impact the drug epidemic is having on local economies. Now, as part of that joint initiative, there will be training sessions, workshops, educational activities at each state-based county association meeting across ARC's 13-state region. Our intent is to equip county leaders like you with the tools you need and want to help meet this challenge. And of course, these opportunities will be open to all conference attendees, not just those from the Appalachian counties. Now, I'm proud of this new partnership initiative ARC is launching with NACO and the resources it will bring to our region. But it is critical that leaders like you are part of the conversation because you are key in this fight. Appalachia saw the birth of our current drug crisis, and it is my hope that the region can also serve as an example for other areas of the country of how the problem can be managed and ultimately overcome. We have no time to waste, but at the end of the day, I believe Kentucky is bigger than its challenges, and I know that you believe that too. But I want to close a little bit on a slightly different note, and as local leaders, I think you may understand why I want to do this. As public officials, you know that a part of your job is to be a promoter a cheerleader, and at times a PR person for your community. Those are important roles. And those things are part of my job as well. And I take it seriously. And I tell you, one thing is evident, that the Appalachian region has never had a shortage of bad publicity. It has long been an area that the media has used to showcase human struggles of all sorts, no matter that those same struggles can be found everywhere. Well, I like to end my talks with a little bit of a counter-narrative, one that takes a little bit longer and more expansive view of Appalachian contributions to the American experience. And I'll start by talking about the fact that Appalachia drove the Industrial Revolution in the United States, which developed into a manufacturing-based economy. The two required precursor elements for a manufacturing-based economy are coal and steel, which were produced in the Appalachian region in great quantities, and developed a manufacturing-based economy roughly from about 1900, when it was conceived, till it grew into maturity in the 1950s and the 1960s. And you think about that manufacturing-based economy and the things that it made possible and the impacts it had. Like the fact that it assured Allied victory in World War II, when the enemy was overwhelmed by sheer numbers of planes and tanks and ships and guns, all traceable back to that industrial colossus that Franklin Roosevelt called the arsenal of democracy. Not possible without unique and indispensable contributions of Appalachia, coal and steel, and blood and tears. And then after that war ended and those millions of service people came home, that manufacturing economy absorbed all those workers as this country was built out. It created good jobs. And the prosperity spread broadly, not perfectly, but more broad than any other civilization in history ever experienced. In fact, they had to come up with a name for it, a new term. They called it the American middle class. And everything we know attended to that. Affordable home ownership, affordable and attainable higher education, things like employer-provided health insurance, widely available, all stemmed from an industrial manufacturing-based economy that had its roots in those two things, coal and steel. And we can talk about more specific industries if you want to do that. We can talk about the modern petroleum industry in the United States, which did not start in Texas or in Oklahoma. The American petroleum industry started in western Pennsylvania, in Appalachia. Do you want to talk about the petrochemical industry? So mightily important. Well, the petrochemical industry did not exist until the 1920s, when the Union Carbide Corporation built the very first modern petrochemical plant in the town of Clendening, West Virginia. The petrochemical industry, folks, that's plastic, made widely available and cheap. And we can talk about fracking, the hydraulic fracturing of shale formations to make more efficient the extraction of oil or natural gas. It is a boom industry in the United States at this time. Well, let me tell you, that basic technology, the concept of fracking shale formations to extract natural gas, that was going on 50 years ago in Kentucky. And we just heard from the folks at Interblue. I think we need to keep our eye on those folks. But to our fellow Americans beyond the region, my advice would be to occasionally look toward Appalachia and see what is trending there. Because if history is any guide at all, what is going on in the Appalachian region will be very impactful, and it is probably headed in your direction. So I want to thank you for giving me the privilege of talking about those things here. It is a privilege to be back in Kentucky speaking with you today. Thank you for your interest in these topics. I look forward to working with you as we do build that brighter future for Kentucky. And just thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Albert.